The Crenshaw House, also known as Old Slave House in Illinois. John Hart Crenshaw made a fortune from the salt springs, according to the official history recognized by the state of Illinois. Census records show both slaves and indentured free blacks were kept at his home, sometimes called the Old Slave House. Also, according to the state, there's strong evidence that Crenshaw helped seize free or fugitive African Americans so that they might be sold into slavery. Census records show that he owned slaves at least until 1830, which was a blatant violation of federal law, Illinois law, and even the laws of his church, of which family history says he was known as a faithful and dedicated member. He did this in full view, and rather than paying a cost for it, the state of Illinois made him even richer by granting him an exclusive lease to the salt springs. The National Park Service endorses the belief that's the last remaining station on the reverse Underground Railroad that seals its importance in history. But another part of the history of this house and this area is the story of how the house survived. But so many others, like in this impoverished corner of southern Illinois, disappeared. There's also the story of two Vietnam veterans who tried to spend the night on the third floor, but also fled in terror. According to the writer, Julie Carr, suddenly a terrible moan reverberated and shook the attic's walls. A cacophony of human voices speaking unintelligible words assaulted their ears, while ghostly figures swirled and danced around them. Their only source of light, the kerosene lamp, then blew out. Blood curdling screams rang out all around them, and they were filled with anxiety and panic, which inspired them to fly down the steep stairs and make a quick exit. David Rogers, a reporter from Harrisburg, was the first person in modern memory to successfully spend the night on the third floor. When in 1970 he reported on the experience for a local TV station. He reported hearing many sounds he couldn't identify, saw vague shapes, as have others who tried it. And in one report I read claimed if he had stationed himself closer to the exit, he likely would have left. But to leave meant walking through the most active part of the room. Others have reported hearing voices, whispering, loud bangs, the sound of rattling chains, crying and whimpering, and the occasional scream. Ghost hunters Ed and Lorraine Warren visited the Crenshaw house and called it the most demoniacal place they had ever visited. From the writer of this story, I spread the copies on my drawing table. Started sketching. Part of the process involved looking closely at the person through a magnifying glass, seeing how the eyes look, where the folds lie, the wrinkles, the lips, imagining the voice which came from them. Eventually, I grew tired, flipped off the light, and went to bed. My bed was across the room from the table as I lay there, trying to fall asleep. I noticed a dark shadow in the corner by the table. That corner's to my left and behind me right now as I write. Though I've had several paranormal encounters in this house, aside from that night, I've never had anything happen in this room. The shadow didn't seem right. It didn't go the full height of the wall, but stopped short of the ceiling by several feet. It was about the height of a man, somewhat short and somewhat stocky. It didn't move. It was just an area of darkness, darker than the other shadows in the room. I turned the light back on. There was nothing there. I switched it off and rolled over. I had back to that corner to try to get to sleep. But I had the certain feeling I was being watched and by someone who wasn't very happy. I rolled over quickly and the shadow was still there. I tried to open the curtains to let more light in. The shadow remained. I turned on a small lamp, which helped, but was still darker in that corner. I still felt someone was there, someone menacing. As I looked into the corner, I thought the shadow was coming back, even in the light. It never grew as dark as it was earlier, but it was still definable. I don't know if I ever fall asleep at least before daybreak. As I lay there, I wondered who could it be. I tried talking to it, but there was no answer. My first thought was it was for a former slave not wanting me to do the drawing. But that felt like a story I was making up for myself. What it felt most like was that I had conjured up Crenshaw that evening, staring into his eyes, thinking of the horror he inflicted. To this day, I'm convinced it was him in some form, and whatever form he took, I didn't want to be a part of it. So the next morning, I packed up the copies of his photos and mailed them back to the old slave house.